no plans to recuse himself. That's what a source close to the new acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker tells CNN, despite the fact that Whitaker has been something of a frequent critic of special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation, previously questioning the scope and reach of the investigation, calling Mueller's appointment ridiculous and fishy. Whitaker has even defended Donald Trump Jr.'s decision to seek dirt on Hillary Clinton from Russians once it was offered, an act that even Steve Bannon said he regarded as treasonous. Whitaker spent some of his first day on the job at the side of the president and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who was previously in charge of Mueller's probe. CNN Justice correspondent Jessica Schneider joins me now. Jessica, do we know if lawmakers could actually force Whitaker to recuse himself?
They could try, Jake, but ultimately this is a question for ethics advisors at the Justice Department. And really, even if those advisors suggested that Whitaker step aside, he is not obligated to follow their advice, especially since his questionable comments are more of a conflict of interest than a legal conflict. And tonight, there are ample indications that Whitaker has no plans to step aside. In his first full day as acting attorney general, Matthew Whitaker went to the White House amid demands from Democrats that he recuse himself from overseeing the Russia probe. But Whitaker has given no indication he believes he needs to recuse himself, according to a source. That philosophy is echoed by White House officials, whose sources say also don't believe Whitaker needs to step aside. And the Washington Post reported that people close to Whitaker don't believe he would approve Mueller seeking a subpoena for President Trump.
My understanding of the scope is that it is limited.
The news is no real surprise, since Whitaker spent several months in 2017 making the rounds in the media, picking apart the special counsel's case.
There is no criminal obstruction of justice charge to be had here. There's just the evidence is weak.
Whitaker was working as a legal commentator for CNN when he defended that Trump Tower meeting in June 2016, where Donald Trump Jr. and others met with a Russian lawyer who promised dirt on Hillary Clinton.
To suggest that there's a conspiracy here, I mean, you would always take that meeting.
And on CNN.com in August 2017, Whitaker warned that Mueller's investigation into the president's personal and business finances has come up to a red line that he is dangerously close to crossing. And if Mueller didn't limit his probe, it would raise serious concerns that the special counsel's investigation was a mere witch hunt. Whitaker also seemed to foreshadow what he might do now that he's acting attorney general.
Well, I could see a scenario where Jeff Sessions is replaced with a recess appointment, and that Attorney General doesn't fire Bob Mueller, but he just reduces his budget so low that his investigation grinds to almost a halt.
Whitaker spent years on the political circuit.
I'm not sure what we are passing on to the next generation.
He lost his bid for the Republican nomination for a U.S. Senate seat in 2014 and state treasurer in 2002. President George W. Bush named him U.S. Attorney in Iowa in 2004, where he served for 5 years. Whitaker later joined the advisory board and was first paid in October 2014 for a company that has since been shut down and slapped with a $26 million fine by federal authorities. World Patent Marketing billed itself as helping investors secure patents, and Whitaker was hands-on.
It's a unique design that's going to help.
Showcasing a hot tub invention in this post from the company. But when a customer complained to the company, court documents show Whitaker lashed out, accusing them of an apparent attempt at possible blackmail or extortion, and warning there could be serious civil and criminal consequences if the customer smeared the company online or filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. And Whitaker's work with this now shut down company, it could really add more fuel to Democrats' anger about his appointment. Of course, right now, Democrats are calling for emergency hearings about this, and they're telling the Justice Department to preserve all documents related to Whitaker's appointment. Jake?
Jessica Schneider, thanks so much. And joining me now is Democratic Representative Adam Schiff of California. He's poised to be the next chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Soon to be Mr. Chairman, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, thank you.
So I want to start with the new CNN reporting that acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker has no intention of recusing himself from overseeing the Russia investigation. Listen to what he said about Mueller's appointment on a radio show last year.
For whatever reason, Rod Rosenstein determined that the Department of Justice couldn't handle this in their ordinary course of work, which I think was ridiculous. And
exactly.
It was through, an effort by Jim Comey to get this, put in place and have somebody that he's very familiar with and Bob Mueller conduct the investigation. So I think it smells a little fishy.
I think it smells a little fishy. Your response, sir?
Well, look, this is why, if he doesn't recuse himself, that any decision he makes in the Mueller investigation is going to have a taint about it. It's going to cause a profound question among the public about whether these decisions are being made by the new Attorney General, acting Attorney General, in the interest of justice or purely in Donald Trump's legal liability interests. This is exactly why he ought to recuse himself. And one question that we have here in Congress right now is, was he forced somehow to make a commitment to the president to ignore the advice of ethics lawyers at the Justice Department or not seek out their advice? Was that part of his getting the job? Because this president is guided by one thing alone, and that is what's good for Donald Trump. The country doesn't matter that much.
If President Trump ultimately takes any action that results in Mueller being fired, whether it's by Whitaker or some other way, what action will the Democratic-controlled House of Representatives take?
Well, one of our first actions, even in the minority, has been to send out preservation letters now to the administration to make sure they preserve all evidence. But if the president effectively undermines the rule of law and causes the special counsel to be fired or an abrupt or partisan end to this investigation, then it will fall on Congress to find out the facts itself, to get those facts from the Justice Department, to continue our own investigation so that we can tell the country exactly what happened, and we can hold people accountable if they take any unlawful act of obstruction of justice. So there are remedies we will have, and exposure is probably among the most powerful.
You're likely going to be chairing the House Intelligence Committee come January. You've hinted that you might reopen the committee's Russia investigation and interview individuals that the Republicans on the committee were not willing to do so. Who are some of the names on the list?
Well, look, what happened actually 6 months ago when the Republicans walked away from the investigation is they decided to focus all of their efforts on investigating the investigators, on harassing the Justice Department and the FBI, and basically do the bidding of the president. We've continued, Jake, to do the investigation. We've continued to bring witnesses in. That won't change when we take the majority. It will just be that much easier because we can compel people that have been unwilling to voluntarily cooperate. I don't want to go through the list of witnesses. We're going to look at what work we were able to do, what work we were prevented from doing, and it may be that when we do get the gavel in January that we already have the advantage of a report from Bob Mueller or subsequent indictments that will help guide us in terms of what work remains to be done.
President Trump said on Twitter, and then he reiterated at his press conference yesterday, that if the House Democrats with new subpoena power investigate him, he could have you all investigated as well. What's your response?
Well, look, that sounds like if he's talking about using the Justice Department in order to do his bidding, another violation of the rule of law. If he's talking about having the Senate do it, I don't know what exactly he's referring to, but he's been on a war footing with Democrats from the very beginning. This is the first president who's made no effort to reach out to the other party, no effort to find common ground, who seems to get up every morning to find new and inventive ways to divide us, certainly along lines of party, but also lines of race and ethnic origin and everything else. So he's been on a war footing. We're going to try to work with him where we can on issues like infrastructure. If he has any genuine interest in it, we would welcome that. But we will not be intimidated into holding back in any way from our constitutional obligation to do oversight. And the fact that this hasn't happened until now, the president's been able to get used to a Congress that would simply do his will and look away at any allegation of malfeasance or corruption. Those days are gone. And the sooner he realizes that, the better. We're going to do our jobs. He needs to do his.
You were very critical of the Republican chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes, for not running the committee in the traditional way it's been run for decades, a bipartisan way. Do you plan to return to the previous model of bipartisanship and making sure all actions taken by the committee are done hand in hand with the Republicans, or are you going to do what you want to do regardless of what Devin Nunes and the Republicans on the committee want?
We are certainly not going to be running the committee the way the Republicans did. And in fact, where we had our rupture was with the chairman's midnight run and that whole saga. You can't run an independent investigation if you're essentially working cahoots with the subject of the investigation. So we're going to try to return to regular order. We're going to continue the nonpartisan tradition of the committee. Of course, we're going to need a willing partner on the other side, and it remains to be seen whether they will adopt a different tactic in the minority than they did in the majority. But we have no interest or intention to be punitive or try to exact retribution. I would love to see us restore comity on the committee, and more than that, restore the confidence of the intelligence community in the committee, which was squandered when the Nunes memorandum was published and the majority selectively declassified information. That was a terrible breach of our contract with the intelligence community.
All right. Soon to be Chairman Adam Schiff, thank you so much. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, Jay.